Hi, and thank you for joining me for another video. And today, my friends, we're going to speak about Chalav Yisrael. And not just milk, but Gevinat Yisrael also, cheese. So, I'm sure you've heard it. Hey, is that milk Chalav Stam or Chalav Yisrael? In other words, is it plain milk or was it milk that was supervised by a Jew? And what's with products like OUD, Orthodox Union Dairy, and why do some Jews not eat it? And what's with OUDE, right? Part of things made in dairy equipment. Okay, friends, this is a topic, like many areas in religious life, in religious Jewish life, that has been twisted and distorted to such an extent that it honestly has Jews wasting tons of money when they really do not have to. And yes, I know that this is a bold statement, but don't worry, my friends, because this Dordai is going to clear it all up for you. Okay, what is Chalav Yisrael? Halacha requires that the milk that we consume, be milked in a location that the one doing the milking is aware that they are under Jewish surveillance. Why is this important? Lest the person doing the milking mix the milk with milk of an unkosher animal. And this is the bare rabbinic ruling of what's Chalav Yisrael. And you must know that there's really no such thing as Chalav Stam. It's really just an industry term made up by misleading Orthodox religious Jews to discredit those who do not follow the strictest made-up practice. And the other alternative brought down in the Gemara to Chalav Yisrael is Chalav Akum, literally milk of idol or star worshippers. And what many don't know is that Akum is really not even mentioned in the Gemara. But it was actually an acronym that the censors introduced to replace anything that literally just meant Goy or non-Jew. And actually, the censors were typically Jews themselves who didn't want to stand out among their non-Jewish neighbors by having texts that referred to all non-Jews in a ritualistic, derogatory fashion. So when a non-Jew opened up Jewish texts and tried to accuse a Jew of possessing literature that, let's say, belittled king and country, the Jew could just say, no, look, it says Akum, which is an acronym for Ovdei Kochavim Umazolot. Not you, my lord. Now, Ovdei Kochavim Umazolot means worshippers of stars and zodiac signs. But actually, in the oldest version of the Gemara, it doesn't even call it Chalav Akum. But it actually calls it just what it is. Chalav shechaluvu ve'en Yisrael roeh. Milk that was milked without a Jew watching. So what we are saying is that there really is no such thing as Chalav Stam. Why? Because to the consumers of Chalav Stam, it is Chalav Yisrael. In other words, according to Halacha, anything that would not be Chalav Yisrael would not be kosher. Similar to the way they have distorted the term glat. When they say that this is glat and that's just regular kosher. When according to halacha, if it's not glat, it's not kosher. Not saying that the one that is not labeled glat is not kosher, but rather that the one not labeled glat is glat. And the real culprits here are the ones who decided to introduce the term glat into the kosher industry in the first place, when everyone who knows basic kashrut knows that all kosher beef is glat. And it's like saying wet water. And why did they introduce it? Well, because they're dishonest, my friends. So Chalav Stam is Chalav Yisrael, at least in the U.S. Again, for those who hold to the only set of halachot on the issue that we will explain, and for those who don't, they really should just call their product Mehadrin, or according to a stricter tradition, or anything that doesn't give the more halachic product an inferior status. Why? Because it has a legitimate basis. Okay? What are the halachot of Chalav Yisrael? Now, being that this is a rabbinic issue, I'm going to bring down the authoritative sources to justify the certain practice. In this case, for the allowance of what is referred today as Chalav Stam. And the source argument I'm going to bring down is that of the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah. And you're probably wondering, why would a religious Torah Jew want to bring down or even encourage others to hold by an opinion that some today may consider lenient instead of what today many would consider a stricter one? And friends, I know that this seems a bit out of place in the wacky religious world we live in today, where people strive to stand out and look a little different. Just so others could say, look how stark he is. Well, what if I told you that they're actually breaking a halakha by doing so? Would you be surprised? And friends, unlike other groups, Dor Deah does not tell you what to think, but rather teaches you how to think halachically. How? Because a principle in halacha is Safek Derabanan Lehakel and Safek Doraita Lechumra. In other words, on any ruling that is a rabbinic one, in other words, that it's not from the Torah, if we have a question on how the halacha should be observed, we are always to take the lenient opinion instead of the stricter one. And on any law or ruling that derives from Torah, if we have a question on how the halacha should be applied, one should always take the stricter opinion. Now, I do have to inform you that this does not apply to the argument of Chalav Yisrael, which there is really no question, as we will explain. However, this notion will only have a bearing in the area of Givinat Yisrael, or regarding cheeses. Now, if someone chooses to take a stricter opinion on a rabbinic halakha, he could do so, but just not as a rule. Okay, he's about nefesh, he's striving to do more, fine, knock yourself out, but to go to such an extent as to ridicule others who do not hold like you, or go as far as not to drink any milk at all, or even relabel it as something, it's not like calling it chalav stam, is just halachically and even morally wrong, especially with how much the Hamish brands cost nowadays. And where can we find this principle mentioned? Well, the Rambam in Hilchot Mamrim in the first parak, halacha 5 states, the following rule applies when there are two sages or two courts that have differing opinions in an age where there was no Supreme Sanhedrin, or during the time when the Supreme Sanhedrin was still undecided concerning the matter. Whether in one age or in two different ages, one rules that an article is pure and one rules that it is impure. One forbids an article's use and one permits it. If one does not know in which direction the law tends, should the matter involve a question of scriptural law, follow the more severe opinion. If it involves a question of rabbinic law, follow the more lenient opinion. It's very, very clear, my friends. Now, the big question is whether this issue is midrabanan or midoraita. If it's from the rabbis of the Sanhedrin or from the Torah. Well, the Rambam in chapter 3 of Hilchot Machlot Asurot brings down the halacha from Chazal. In halacha 15 he writes, when a person partakes of cheese from Gentiles or milk that was milked by a Gentile without Jewish supervision, he is given stripes for rebellious conduct, right? Here, my friends, is proof that the command is rabbinic and not from the Torah. In other words, there's no korban, karet, for sure, no skila, or anything like that. And the lashes he uses is makot marduk and not loke, right? Loke always means from the Torah. And here in the same portion he continues regarding milk. He states, because according to the law we suspect that any milk from Gentiles is mixed with the milk of a non-kosher animal. So here the Rambam is stating the reason for the prohibition, and that's solely because the milk may have been mixed with non-kosher milk. So that was halacha 15. Now we will jump to halacha 17. It states in halacha 17, when a Jew sits near a herd belonging to a Gentile, Yisrael sheyasav betzad heder shel hagoy, and the Gentile brings him milk from the herd, harez mutar, it is permitted for him to partake of it, even though there are non-kosher animals in the herd. This applies even though he did not see them milk the animal. Right? It says, harez mutar ve'af al pi shelo ra'al toch olev, provided that he, of course, could have seen if he were to stand. And here he repeats it again, that the rationale is that the Gentile is afraid to milk the non-kosher animal lest the Jew stand and see him. Shechagoy mityare lachlov min hatmeah. So the whole issue is yirah, fear that the goy might get caught. Now this is the halacha. Now, my friends, I want to cover what is actually involved in making what people call chalav stam nowadays, which is the milk that you would buy in your local grocery store. Number one, they're monitored by the USDA Federal Inspection System all the time, not just when a Jew entered the vicinity of the dairy farm, which is a stringency that does not appear in the halakha. And it's an agency that will not only penalize them for intentionally adding non-kosher milk, but would shut them down also. So there's a bigger fear than a Jew just watching. 2, they don't even have humans doing the milking, but machines. Another stringency. 3, they do not include mixed herds in their milking, which is not even, again, part of the halakha we just mentioned, and it's another stringency. So this completely satisfies the reason the Gemara mentions that was the only reason the prohibition was put into place, and that was because of fear, both on the Jewish and non-Jewish side of the coin. So many will say that this is just the Rambam, and we don't go by the Rambam. However, the Rambam is just repeating what is said in the Gemara, and that's all. Oh, but some later rabbi may have said this and that. Well, my friends, I think it's time for me to fill you in on yet another halachic principle. And that's that anyone who paskins outside of Chazal is a heretic. Oh, but is our tradition, blah, blah, blah. Nonsense, nonsense. Lo tosef alav velo tigram mimenu. You just can't add stuff to Judaism. So, why do they keep on insisting with Chalav Yisrael? Friends, it's because they have spiritualized the milking of cows. And it's not how the Rambam and how the Halakha states that it's lest the milker add unkosher milk. No, there's something magical, in their opinion, that happens when a Jew is watching. When, again, the halakha states that the Jew doesn't even have to actually be watching. And today, not only do they have one Jew inspecting the whole process, but they actually have 2. And in the more Hamish bands, they even have a Jew doing the milking. My friends, this is OCD. Not to mention that since the rise of Kabbalah, the hatred for the non-Jewish world has increased, which is another reason for the Chalav Yisrael craze, which has only made Jews more insular and less trusting than before. And a big argument that is really made on why not consume Chalav Yisrael is because it is so readily available nowadays. And friends, this is just another silly argument. No, my friends, the reason you should not consume what is labeled today as Chalav Yisrael is because, again, you are just feeding the kosher mafia. Not to mention that Chalav Yisrael is twice the price of regular milk. Not to mention that it keeps these dishonest and or halachic ignorant Jews in business. And friends, please remember that this only applies in countries like the U.S. that has such supervision. Actually, in most countries outside of the U.S., you will need a label on the milk stating that it was supervised by a Jew. And friends, what's funniest of it all is that the late, great Rav Moshe Feinstein typically gets all the hate for mentioning this teaching in his Igros Moshe, when if they would have properly learned the halakha, they would have realized that this is not only how the Gemara held, but the Rambam, the Pri Chadash, and many other Torah giants. So the next time someone tells you that by consuming USDA milk you're being meko, or that it is only kosher b'di'evet, tell them to go and learn and stop being such a puppet. Okay, now my friends, now we're going to cover Gevinat Yisrael, kosher cheese. This is also found in chapter 3 of Machlot Asurot. Halacha 12, it states, the milk of a non-kosher animal will not congeal and solidify as the milk of a kosher animal does. If the milk of a non-kosher animal is mixed together with the milk of a kosher animal, when the mixture is set aside for cheese to be made, the kosher milk will solidify and the non-kosher milk will be expelled together with the whey of the cheese. So here it states that if you take non-kosher milk and you mix it with kosher milk, in the actual process of cheese making, the two will separate because non-kosher milk will not turn into cheese. So we do not have to worry. Next, Halacha 13. Accordingly, logic would dictate that any milk found in the possession of a Gentile is forbidden, lest the Gentile have mixed the milk of a non-kosher animal with it. And the cheese of the Gentiles should be permitted, for the milk of a non-kosher animal will not form cheese. Now here's the heavy part. It says, Aval b'mei chachmei mishnah gazara al gevinat hagoyim v'asura mipnei shemimadin ota be'or hakeva shelish chitatan shehi nevela. Nevertheless, during the age of the sages of the Mishnah, they issued a decree against Gentile cheese and forbade it, lest they use the skin of the stomach of an animal they slaughtered, which is forbidden as a nevela, to cause it to solidify. So, what does this mean? Well, in the process of making cheese, a way to speed up the curdling would be to throw a piece of the stomach lining into the milk. So according to the Rambam, this is why the members of the Sanhedrin forbade non-Jewish cheese. Next, Halacha 14. It says, the following law applies when cheese is left to solidify with herbs or fruit juice or fig syrup, and it is apparent that these substances were used for the cheese. There are some of the Geonim who have ruled that it is forbidden. For our sages already decreed that all cheeses of Gentiles are forbidden, whether they cause them to solidify with a forbidden entity or with a permitted entity. This is a decree instituted because they cause them to solidify using forbidden entities. So this here is talking about vegetarian rennet. So here the halacha seems to be pretty straightforward. It seems that the Rambam does not allow eating goyish cheeses. What do we do? Friends, remember the principle we mentioned in the beginning of the lecture on where, when there's a question on a rabbinic halacha, that our reaction should always be to act in a lenient fashion. Okay, so you're probably asking, where is the question? We just read that the Rambam states that there was a gezerah, right? Al gevinat hagoyim, on the cheeses of non-Jews. He held that they ushered it because of nevela, which is the issue of rennet. But then in halacha 14, it asks, what if vegetarian rennet is used? Shouldn't it then be permissible? But the Rambam says no. Why? Because the members of the Sanhedrin already ruled on it. But did they? Well, friends, if we look in the Mishnah and Gemara, we see that we do not know why the Sanhedrin ushered it. Actually, it was a ruling that was forgotten on why it was ruled out in the first place, which makes it a suffix, a question, on at least the question why. And friends, there's another halachic principle you must learn, and that's that every rabbinic halacha has to have a reason or a rational basis for it. Now, if the issue of the law is from the Torah, no reason is needed. Why? Because Hashem said it, right? But in order for the great court to prohibit or allow anything, there would always have to be a reason to it. Actually, in the Gemara itself, our sages brought down different reasons for not allowing cheeses. Some said it was because of nevela, some said it was because of intermarriage. They didn't agree, to the point that the Rambam acknowledged this issue in the last halacha we read, when he states that there are some of the Geonim who have ruled that it is forbidden. Telling us what? Telling us that due to what I just explained, that many, and according to the wording, probably the majority of them ruled that it was allowed. Goyish cheeses. Allowed, but the Rambam just said it was forbidden. The Rambam was just stating what he believed. In other words, that he was convinced. For him, there was no suffix. There was no question in his mind. So this would make this a general suffix de Rabbanan, like we just learned in the beginning of this lecture, and we should be lenient on it. So what does this mean for us? Can we just go and buy any cheese sold in the market? No, my friends. This means that if the issue of nevela is ruled out, in other words, we know for a fact that they use vegetable rennet, the cheese would be kosher for consumption, which actually means that any cheese from a non-Jewish cheese company that has certified itself that it uses vegetable rennet is kosher for consumption, as long as all the other products used within it is kosher. Actually, this was a statement uttered by Rav Soloveitchik himself regarding Kraft cheese. He stated that Kraft cheese was kosher to eat even though it didn't have a hechsher. Tosfos held the same way regarding cheeses. And there's actually whole communities in Italy that still hold by that Tosfos. Now, I'm not sure about Kraft products today. People should double check this. I mean, last I checked, they don't use vegetable rennet in all their cheeses. And friends, that's probably more than you ever wanted to know about cheeses. But if you're interested in learning more about Judaism, please visit doordea.com or torahjudaism.org. Thank you.